Hello and welcome to Granada Reports. We are live with the latest across the northwest.
Hello, thanks for joining us. Coming up on the programme this evening.
Stabbed to death in a Bolton park. How Emily's father is still searching for answers as to how a paranoid schizophrenic woman was able to kill.
There's still things that I'm really not comfortable with, so as far as the police and the Home Office are concerned.
Safely back home after a month trapped in Gaza, mixed emotions for the Liverpool transplant surgeon Dr. Abdul Hamad. He joins us live in the studio.
The recycling scheme hoping to break the cycle of reoffending, a special report from inside Style Prison.
The teenager already back on his feet after surviving 60% burns, much to the amazement of his doctors.
And in the weather, some glorious autumnal colours out there, but nothing quite as spectacular as nature's own light show. Yes, lots of aurora pictures in tonight's forecast and the full outlook coming up.
Well, first tonight, the father of Emily Jones, the little girl who was killed by a woman with paranoid schizophrenia in Bolton in 2020, and his search for answers about the woman who killed her and the police investigation.
Mark Jones has questioned whether mistakes were made in processing Eltiona Skarna's asylum status. He's demanding answers from Greater Manchester Police, as Tim Scott reports.
3.5 years after Emily Jones was killed, and her family are still waiting for answers.
There's still things that I'm really not comfortable with, so as far as the police and the Home Office are concerned, hence why we're raising these issues now with yourselves.
It was a killing that shocked the whole country. 7-year-old Emily Jones attacked by a stranger, paranoid schizophrenic Eltiona Skarna, as she rode her scooter through Queen's Park in Bolton. On that day in March 2020, Emily was here in the park with her father Mark when she spotted her mother up ahead, and she rode off on her scooter to meet her. As she rode past Eltiona Skarna, who was sat by herself on a park bench, Skarna jumped up and cut Emily's throat with a knife. Emily didn't stand a chance, and she was later pronounced dead in hospital. Skarna, seen here minutes after she'd killed Emily, was sentenced to life with a minimum of 10 years and 8 months after admitting manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. But for Emily's family, there are still unanswered questions about Skarna's background and the police investigation. After hearing evidence at Emily's inquest, Emily's father's been left wondering whether Eltiona Skarna should have even been in the UK at all, because it's emerged that in 2015 and 17, Skarna admitted to police and doctors that she'd lied about being trafficked on her asylum application and that she wanted to go back home to Albania. Mark Jones' solicitor told me that a plan of action between the Home Office and the police to repatriate Skarna back to Albania was never followed through.
The Home Office had told the police to tell Skarna to get in touch with the Voluntary Departures Unit for asylum so that she could return home voluntarily. But there was no record amongst the police papers of either having been given that information or telling Skarna that that is what she needed to do.
I guess the inference here is that if they'd done their job, she wouldn't be in the country.
Absolutely, she wouldn't have been there, and this could have been avoided. And I think, as Sefton said, it sounded like she wanted to go back to Albania anyway, and she slipped through the net.
In June this year, Mark and Sefton sent GMP a 10-page document listing their concerns. Those concerns haven't yet been addressed. In a statement, GMP told us Greater Manchester Police can confirm that a complaint has been raised regarding the tragic death of Emily Jones and is being progressed by the Force's Professional Standards Branch. Officers remain in contact with the complainant's legal representation and the investigation remains ongoing. Mark says he won't give up looking for answers and won't rest until the full facts and backstory around Emily's killing are revealed. Tim Scott, ITV News.
Well, next tonight, the transplant surgeon from the Royal Liverpool University Hospital, who is back home after a month trapped in Gaza. Dr. Abdul Hamad didn't realise that he was heading into the eye of the storm when he arrived in the Palestinian city to carry out kidney transplants as part of a charity programme.
Well, within days, he and his colleagues were surrounded by bombs and bloodshed. Not only did the transplant work have to stop, but the medical teams themselves feared for their lives.
Well, Dr. Hamad was reunited with his family at the weekend, and we're very pleased to see you safely back and in the studio with us tonight. But what has it been like for you to be back here, leaving those horrific scenes behind?
Obviously, I was very relieved to be back home, happy to be with my family. Having said that, obviously, I'm very sad to what I have left before. Behind me in Gaza. The situation is really catastrophic for the general population in Gaza, but also my fear is for my colleagues in the Al-Shifa hospital where I used to do my operations, who are under intense pressure and difficult situations, fearing for their lives, for their families, and then my patients who I left behind, those patients who I transplanted over the past 10 years. And we should have had some follow-up for them, blood tests, and I think they are running out of medication at the moment, and that will endanger their lives, unfortunately.
Doctor, you travelled out to Gaza to help a handful of people. But then, you know, the scale of what we're seeing, the devastation, destructions, the loss of life on an unimaginable scale. Just tell us about the emotions that have been coursing through you over the last few weeks.
Yeah, this was the sense I have when I was there, that I am there to save the lives of probably 4 or 5 patients at one time when I go there. And by this war, there are thousands of children and adults has been killed within 2 to 3 weeks. And that's made me question, was that worth all the efforts we are putting to save those lives while those people are killed this way?
And it's heartbreaking to see the loss of life on both sides here. I wonder how worried you are about the impact that all this could have on communities here with connections to both sides.
Obviously, I mean, loss of life is very regrettable anywhere. And as a doctor, I mean, my job is to save lives. And I feel that any life which is endangered is a tragedy for the family, for the community, for everyone. Here we should, as communities in Britain, make sure that this bloodshed is stopped and continuing loss of life should be stopped, and by pressure on the governments or on our government to do more to stop all this bloodshed.
I was going to say, Doctor, because, you know, politicians on either side of the political aisle, they're under a lot of pressure at the moment calling for a ceasefire. I mean, what would your message be to those political leaders be?
I think they should put a lot of pressure on the warring parties to stop and have a ceasefire. The situation is catastrophic inside Gaza, and we need humanitarian corridors to bring food, water, medical supplies, fuel into the strip. The hospitals are going to stop working very soon if we don't have fuel going into Gaza.
Dr. Hamad, there we have to leave it for now, but I'm sure we'll come back to you at a later date. You must be exhausted. Thank you so much for coming in to talk to us.
Thank you.
Well, those calls for senior politicians to back a ceasefire, as I said, are growing, most notably in Burnley, where the council's Labour leader and 10 other councillors have resigned from the party over the issue.
Yeah, let's cross live now to our political correspondent, Andrew Misra. Now, this issue is getting complicated now for the Labour leader, Keir Starmer.
Yeah, it is, Lucy. This was being seen as the toughest test of Keir Starmer's leadership so far, even before these resignations led by Burnley Council leader Afrasiab Anwar. After calling for Mr Starmer to stand down for refusing to back a ceasefire in Gaza, last night he and 10 other councillors in Lancashire said their positions had become untenable.
We don't want to see innocent people dying, and that's what we're seeing on our screens at the moment, is that innocent people are losing their lives. And as Labour Party members, we should be speaking out against injustices right across the world, and we just don't seem to be doing that right now.
Well, Labour are still the largest party on Burnley Council, but this issue threatens to pose a much wider risk to the party. More than a dozen of their front benchers have already called for a ceasefire, and with MPs set to return to Westminster this week, it seems likely that there'll be further pressure, which is something that a member of Keir Starmer's shadow cabinet was asked about earlier.
Where we differ is how we can get there most effectively at this point in time, and Keir Starmer has taken the view that the best way for us to get there is through international agreements around humanitarian pauses to get aid in, to free hostages and to begin that process towards a long-term peaceful settlement.
Well, the organisation that represents the Jewish community of Greater Manchester, meanwhile, has rejected calls for a ceasefire. So you can see why this is such a difficult issue for Labour to grapple with on the eve of what will mark a month since Hamas's surprise attack on Israel.
OK, Andrew in Westminster, thank you.
Well, next, complete change and a rare look inside one of our region's prisons at a scheme that could help cut reoffending rates.
Yes, Recycling Lives trains and employs prisoners to work in their recycling workshops and then helps them secure a good job and housing on release. Less than 5% of the prisoners they work with go on to reoffend, far below the national average.
Yeah, the scheme has already completely changed the life of one former prisoner. She's now employed to manage their workshop at HMP Style. This exclusive report from Anna Yosef.
So what's going on here now then? So the girls are dismantling TVs, they're separating all the materials, the plastics and the circuit boards and things, which will then be recycled.
Yvonne's the first former inmate in Style Prison's history to return as an employee. She's proof, given the right tools and support, rehabilitation is possible. Yvonne spent years in and out of prison for drug-related offences. She now manages this workshop, which employs offenders to recycle electrical waste.
My criminal life went on for 30 plus years. There wasn't a year that went by that I wasn't involved with the courts or the police. It just started from a very young age, and it was just hard to come out of, although I wanted it to change for a lot of years. I didn't know how to.
The workshop's part of a rehabilitation programme run by the charity Recycling Lives. Prisoners are paid for their work and receive training. On their release, they're helped to find skilled employment and stable housing. Yvonne says the charity helped turn her life around and break the cycle of reoffending. Now she wants to help others.
I get a lot of respect off the women because they do know I'm an ex-offender. You know, I can relate to a lot of things that these women go through. And it's just the trust, it's trusting somebody. And I think if you can trust one person when you're in a situation as these are, being in prison, then you can get somewhere.
By the time she was 30, Naomi had been in prison 8 times for drugs and violence. She was released from Style 2 years ago. She says the charity's helped her stay out of prison and on the right track.
This is the first time when I got out this time that I was given my own home. And basically the headspace to think and breathe and decide what I wanted to do without having to always live in survival mode and act on my instincts and decide in an instant what I was going to do. The difference between Recycling Lives and the prisons is the support. Is that everybody who comes through Recycling Lives gets their own tailored support. They get to know you, and instead of just sticking a plaster on your problem and going, there's a job, it's right, let's take them plasters off, let's get inside, so that if we give you a job or get you a job, you can maintain your lifestyle and how you're living, because otherwise, what's the point? You might give someone a bit of hope, but then once they fall again, they lose that bit of hope that they had to start with, and it's harder and harder to get back up each time.
Naomi's now a manager at the charity Fair Share. It's a job she enjoys and is good at.
I'm not a different person to what I was. I was never a bad person to start with. That's just what's presumed of criminals. It's just that sometimes things are necessities, and everybody is born to a different place, and some people are born to better places than others. And some people have to fight and have to do them things to survive, and some people don't. And that's just the world, really.
The charity support programme has helped rehabilitate hundreds of ex-offenders. Currently, 55% of inmates who serve less than 12 months in custody will reoffend within a year of release. But the reoffending rate for those employed by Recycling Lives is less than 5%.
Yvonne, how are you doing? The work is a means to an end. Our aim is to change lives. Our job is to learn what the women aspirations are and what they need when they get out, and we have a whole team of key workers who look at accommodation needs, employment needs, pastoral needs, specialist help, anything that the ladies want that will enable them to have the best chance of succeeding outside, and that's why we exist as a charity.
We know the experts put the annual cost of reoffending at about £18 billion. It's a mind-boggling figure. Of course, most crime is repeat crime, most offending is reoffending, and that's why it's so important that when people are in prison, we work with them on rehabilitation alongside that punitive element, but also when they come out at that pivotal moment, that we make sure the help and support is there to give them the best chance to succeed, to get back on the straight and narrow.
This prisoner, who's part of the programme, has just got her forklift truck licence. She's hoping when she's released, with the charity's continued support, she'll be able to keep on moving in the right direction. Anna Yosef, ITV News.
Yeah, a scheme changing lives in a positive way. Now, the Cumbrian poet John Ruskin called it one of the loveliest views in England, and the great landscape painter Turner put brush to canvas to capture Ruskins View in Kirkby Lonsdale.
Yeah, but for 2 years, the footpath to the famous vantage point has been closed, and they have to find £1 million to reopen it. Paul Crone reports.
Ruskins View in Kirkby Lonsdale, one that's hard to beat across the country, let alone Cumbria. But for the last 2 years, this is the only view visitors and local residents get. Metal gates and padlocks block the footpath which leads to the famous vista. Due to continuous erosion, the riverbank below has become unstable, making the viewpoints and footpath above unsafe for the public.
Over the last almost 2 years that the brow's been closed, the number of people coming in and so where's this Ruskins View I've been hearing about? And sadly it's closed, and we also have the Devil's Bridge obviously, but it's such a big part of why people come to Kirkby Lonsdale.
Turner's painting, done back in 1822, was later described by the poet John Ruskin as one of the loveliest views in England. But now the local community is left trying to raise over £1 million to reopen the footpath, to allow people to see the River Lune against the backdrop of the Dales for themselves.
We've got two huge applications going in for funding early next year, one to National Heritage Lottery and one to a fund called the Community Ownership Fund. And if we get that sort of money, then we hopefully will get close to the £1 million.
It's one of the only places for an hour around where you can where you have a wheelchair accessible view. So it's really important for lots of different reasons for lots of different people.
To everyone's credit, frantic fundraising has meant £150,000 has already been put into the pot, including making this specially designed brew. But there's still a long way to go to reach the point where the footpath can be reopened.
Local businesses are rightly worried that the longer the footpath to Ruskins View remains closed, the more it could affect the number of tourists visiting Kirkby Lonsdale.
Around here we've got two economies, we've got farming and we've got tourism, and this is one of the two big tourist attractions in the town, so this is a big part of the reason why people come here.
So for now you'll have to settle for this glimpse of a glorious and popular landmark. Locals though say they're very focused on putting that right. Paul Crone, ITV News, Kirkby Lonsdale.
Well, there is a statement from Westmoreland and Furness Council, which owns the footpath. It says the path will remain closed until urgent works to strengthen, stabilise and protect the embankment are conducted by the landowner.
We are supporting the community's efforts by working closely with the parish council, landowners and other partners to assist them in providing a suitable solution.
Now to the FA Cup, and non-league Chester will take on the 2013 Cup winners Wigan in round 2 if Chester can win their replay against York. Wigan booked their place with a 2-0 win at Exeter City in round 1. Barrow will face Maidstone United next after beating League One's Northampton 3-1. Morecambe, another League Two club, will take on Wickham after beating Lincoln 2-1. Salford, Crewe and Accrington will need replays, but Stockport are heading to Aldershot after beating Worksop 5-1. Fleetwood, who beat Kidderminster 2-1, will now take on Cambridge United. Bolton, 4-0 winners over Solihull, will now get a home tie against Harrogate. And Blackpool's reward for a 2-0 win at Bromley is a game against either Scarborough or Forest Green. Preston have climbed into the Championship's playoff spots after a much-needed 3 points. Their first win for 8 matches was a 3-2 home win over Coventry City, and Blackburn Rovers are just 3 points behind them after their 3-1 win at Norwich. In the Women's Super League, Manchester City boss Gareth Taylor has accused the Arsenal manager Jonas Eidevall of bullying the 4th official. There were some heated exchanges on the touchline as City's unbeaten start to the season was brought to a frustrating end with a 2-1 defeat. Meanwhile, Liverpool are up to 4th in the table after their 2-1 win over Leicester at Prenton Park. A late penalty rescued a point for Everton as they drew 1-1 at Spurs. And I'll leave you with this one. Ella Toone hitting one of the goals of the season so far as Manchester United drew 2-2 at Brighton. Well worth another look. United now unbeaten in 12 Super League matches. I could watch that one all night. Great strike.
That's quite a goal. Thanks, Chris. OK, well, next up, the most incredible story of recovery and determination of a teenage boy from Bolton.
Oliver Hart suffers severe burns to 60% of his body after an accident while playing with friends. He spent 8 months in hospital.
Yeah, the 15-year-old nearly died twice, and he received a revolutionary skin graft using skin that was grown in a lab.
Now, to the amazement of his doctors, he's back home and back on his feet, as Simran Johal reports.
Playing football with his brother, like any other 15-year-old boy, for 8 months of Oliver Hart's life, this wasn't the case. After burning 60% of his body, Oliver was in and out of surgery every other day.
So straight away I dropped to the floor and started rolling around to put the fire out. And then I asked my friend, I was shouting for my friends to help me. They helped me to get to the stream so I could get in the stream to try and cool down. It was scary. I didn't know what was going to happen afterwards. I thought I was going to die. I was terrified.
But now, thanks to the work of doctors at Manchester Children's Hospital and the dedication of his family, Oliver has defied the odds and is back on his feet.
I just needed to know everything about him and about his treatment to make sure that we carried on going the way we did, and it paid off. I mean, I'm sure some of the staff will say I was a bit of a nightmare sometimes, but I was Oliver's voice.
One of the doctors that helped his recovery says he's a role model to others, and the hard work he put in shows how far people can come.
Nobody gets better from a major burn injury without actually turning up and engaging, and I have to say that Ollie has been amazing. We deal with quite a lot of complex ideas when we're looking after kids with these injuries, and his mum was great at just distilling that down and, if you like, speaking Ollie.
Do you think how far Ollie's come is a testament to you and your work, but also just how you've raised him?
Yeah, I don't take all the credit though. It makes me so proud, like, he amazes me every day. It just melts my heart, just absolutely melts my heart, and makes me so proud that he's done it. And I remember saying when he walked out those doors, "You've done it, Oliver, you've done it." I honestly didn't think I would make it, and I did.
As Oliver goes back to doing the things he loves, he'll continue to be an example of strength and resilience. Simran Johal, ITV News, Manchester.
Yeah, well done to Oliver and everyone who helped him there. Well, now let's get the weather from Emma.
Why do I need a shower? I've been out in the rain.
The faster you go, the sooner you'll be out. You'll save water too.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Hello there, hope you've had a good Monday. Now then, the Aurora Borealis was seen widely across the UK last night, even as far south as Kent, and we have some truly spectacular pictures from around the region. My goodness, you were busy last night out there, and some of us were lucky enough to capture the Steve effect, strong thermal emission velocity enhancement. Yes, it just trips off the tongue, and it isn't often that we see the aurora to this level across the UK, so really we have been very lucky there. Thank you for sharing those photos with us. I don't think we're going to be as lucky tonight in seeing it, so just make the most, savour this last picture. Now, it's going to be sunny spells and showers all the way this week, with a spell of wet and windy weather on Wednesday. Current indications are that it's coming through a little bit quicker than we thought it would do yesterday, but it's still just going to bring that spell of weather that pushes through some gales at the west coast as well. But before then, well, we still have a few showers trickling through into the northwest during the course of this evening. As the night wears on, they start to thin out a little bit. Some clearer spells spells there. I think it's going to be too breezy for mist and fog to form too extensively or for any frost to form, but it still could be a little bit nippy out there. Into tomorrow morning, well, the showers continue for a little while longer. It's a bit of a rinse and repeat of today. However, there is an improvement into the afternoon, and that's because we have a small ridge of high pressure building from the west. So that serves to kill off any showers later on in the day. So in the morning, it's going to be breeziest and wettest, the wind lightening off into the afternoon and the showers thinning out as well. And then we expect maybe an early frost on Tuesday night into Wednesday. That spell of wet and windy weather with gales at the west coast on Wednesday, clearing to sunny spells and showers. Bye-bye.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
And that is all from us for Granada Reports this evening.
Tomorrow, though, we meet Burma veteran James Fenton from the Isle of Man, who is 101 years young.
We'll have a report every night for the rest of this week as we build up to Remembrance Sunday. That is all for now. Many thanks indeed for watching. Bye-bye.